You can tell from the lump of clay that I'm making a pretty big plate, or a platter, about 12 inches across when it's finished. And all plates have sort of the same thing in common. They're like a very flat bowl with sides high enough to keep soupy stuff from slipping off the edges, but still very flat. So the first thing you want to do is get a good flat bottom. So I'm pulling straight out from the center without going up or down. I know from experience it'll be about a ½ inch thick on the bottom. And then I've cleaned it off with a rib, because as much as we like throwing marks sometimes anyway, they aren't good on plates in case people use forks and knives on them. They make a lot of noise and other irritations. Okay, now I'm working on the outside edge. Once you have the bottom all finished, then it's time to thin out the outside edge by squeezing between your fingers, smoothing it off with a chamois, and doing any final shaping that you want. You can put a deeper groove, but if you just keep going, you get a smooth curve like that. This next section shows the use of the Japanese tobikanna, or chattering tool, which is detailed on my webpage how to make one out of a tuna fish can. Okay, for this example it's the next day, although it can also be applied to freshly thrown pottery. I'll do it either way. You do get a little bit of different effect. You get a finer chatter if you do it to leather hard clay. So this is leather hard clay. I've applied two colors or a slip. There's the pale beige color, and the dark brown is red iron oxide. I'm applying it in bands while the wheel's spinning, obviously, and making some thin and some fat bands. This is a decoration I've used for many years. It was actually the first one I figured out after apprenticing and learning this technique from Chris Holmquist, my master potter who learned it in Japan. Okay, using this combing tool, the single end of it, I make some lines through the iron, which exposes the clay underneath, the white clay underneath. And it's just a way to define and add more variety to decoration. The actual chattering I leave to a fairly small area, and we're going to see how that happens. First, I'm doing a little bit of combing, because I find that the combination of the two an interesting way of decorating. So I'm going around in little circles with the end of the plastic comb, which has 3 little bumps on it, and it makes a decoration like that. Now here's the tobikanna tool. It's just a piece of spring steel with a rounded end, and when it's contacted to the spinning clay, it bounces up and down just like a washboardy road. And that's what it's doing right now as it contacts the clay, digging out little bits as it goes. It can be kind of a messy operation, and it's best to just leave the stuff on there until it's dry, when you can clean it up. But there it is. It kind of looks like snowflakes or little dashes, dots, depending on which part of the tool you use and how many times you use it. I think it's especially important with plates to have a fairly high foot so that they can stack on each other without stacking on each other's rims, which tends to encourage cracking. And so I use the thrown foot method, the coil foot, which I show on quite a few of my pots, but I think it's particularly important on things like plates. So after trimming off a little of the excess clay around the edges there, you just apply some slip, you score it, and you get a coil of clay long enough to go all the way around. Use the scoring as a guide, and push down and pinch in the clay a little bit as you go. You can sometimes squeeze out a little bit extra to make it match at the end if it isn't too far, but sometimes you have to add a bit in too. And when you do, it's a good idea to wet the ends where it connects. You get a better and less likely to get a crack where those appear, or when you get back to the beginning anyway. Okay, then I get it wet with a sponge and start applying pressure down and to the sides with a chamois that's looped over the top of it. And I'll apply more pressure If it's really uneven, I may trim off with a needle to get a nice smooth bottom. But a lot of the times you can just push it around. But there I am using the needle just to show you how that technique is done, to take a little ring off. You can see it was very thin at one edge, so it was a little uneven. Of course, you need to smooth it up again with a chamois. I'm not a decorative potter, but I can't control how people use my platters, so I put a couple of holes in the rim in case somebody wants to stick a wire or some fish line in to hang the platter up on a wall. Occasionally people take advantage of that, and it only takes a minute to do, so I'm happy to do it as a standard thing on the bottom of my platters. After bisquing the platter, in order to finish it and show off the decoration, I used a thin transparent matte glaze over the middle, which I applied with a brush on the wheel. Then I painted wax resist over that, and then I dipped the pot in a gloss white glaze for the rim.